Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening is our hopefully last public hearing for impact fees. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to present to you the impact fee calculations and the maximum allowable impact fees that can be assessed and collected for water, wastewater, and roadways. The consultant will present the impact fee calculation methodology, and they'll show you some charts showing where the town of Westlake lands in comparison with our benchmark cities. At the August 11th Capital Improvement Advisory Committee meeting, the committee recommended adopting impact fees at the maximum allowable rates for water, wastewater, and roadway. The recommendation letter signed by Chairman Coffey was sent to the council by email last week and is included in your packets. At the end of the consultant's presentation this evening, you'll need to consider approval of Ordinance 1028, adopting impact fees, the rate of assessment and collection, and an effective date. Staff recommends adopting Ordinance 1028 at the maximum allowable rates for water, wastewater, and roadways, and with an effective date of August 25th. Are there any questions before I turn it over to the consultant for their presentation?
Oh, ma'am.
Okay. I believe you all are familiar with Andrew.
We are. Welcome.
And Eddie.
Good to see you again.
Good evening. How is everyone doing today? Appreciate y'all coming for a special meeting while we kind of have what we call here is, like Cheryl said, hopefully the last presentation to maybe get towards a potential implementation of this program. So we'll just real quick hit on the basics again, and then we'll go through the actual calculations and talk about those benchmarkings. Really the intention there is to give a lot of data for y'all to help make an informed decision moving forward. So, the basics of why we're doing this program, is really to, talk about how, new development, when they come into the town, they have an impact on infrastructure. We're talking roadway, water and sewer systems here, and the program itself is really to have a mechanism for new development to pay really not a full cost, really, but what it is, a proportion of the cost for implementing public infrastructure that helps to serve their development. So we like to say it's really growth paying for growth. What is going to be their fair, equitable share of the impact to their these infrastructure systems? So we followed state law, Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code. Gives a very prescribed procedure for how we actually go about doing this process and coming up with the calculations. If a program were to be adopted, it would be required by state law to be reassessed on a 5-year cycle at a minimum. So really what that does is you kind of relook at how things change from a land use and development perspective and what are the trickle-down impacts for infrastructure that could potentially change your fee structure. So the process we've been going through for the last few months is developing those land use assumptions and eligible capital improvement plans, which were approved at a previous public hearing, but a couple months ago at this point. The eligible capital projects are really what they do is they provide excess capacity to help serve that growth. So projects that include like O&M type things or rehabbing or refurbishing certain assets, those are types of projects that aren't going to be eligible under this program. It's really projects that provide that extra capacity for our future projected growth. So we go through, we develop the plans, do the calculations that we're presenting today. Cheryl mentioned we had the CIAC meetings, and they've recommended an approval of the impact fee program, and here we are on public hearing number 2. So the calculation itself, you can see we have you develop what is that impact fee eligible cost. That's going to be the blue box in our equation. The state law requires you can either do a detailed financial credit analysis or you can take a 50% credit just kind of off the top. For this first study that we've gone through, we've opted for the 50% credit method. So you'll see the eligible cost really just kind of gets cut down in half or 50%. And then, so that cost is going to be divided by the growth in SFLUE, single family living unit equivalents. For the water wastewater side, we look at that in terms of added meters or meter capacity. And then on the roadway side, we look at the growth in vehicle miles. So you have a cost divided by a rate of growth, and so you come up with the maximum allowable cost number. So that's going to be the math that we're going to walk through today.
Andrew, with
Yes,
the
sir.
state law at 50%, does that mean that the state expects the existing residents, businesses, to absorb 50% of the growth? 50% of the growth costs?
That is, yeah, that's how this one method works. Again, you can do that detailed financial analysis to see if you can go above that 50% number, so you can be between 50% and the true 100%. But again, we opted not to do that at this time.
Is it a difficult computation?
I mean, you really kind of have to look backwards at a lot of the debt and the time. Could we potentially be double charging this new development? So that's essentially what the 50% rule comes into, make sure that we're not double charging.
So there could be debt and debt service associated with that growth.
That's correct.
Captured
Yes,
by
sir.
everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Andrew, sorry, one quick follow-up question on that. Councilman Ikera said, is it a lot safer to just take the 50% that's sort of standard and eliminates any possibility of future litigation around overcharging, anything like that? Is that part of the incentive?
That is definitely the safer route, and okay. I'd say the majority, I would say, of folks who have this program go with the 50%.
Councilmember Dwayne, that's exactly correct. Anytime you give a credit of any kind, that can be challenged in court. So they could, every time we assess a fee, they could turn around and challenge that every single fee we assess. But the 50% credit, that's less likely to occur.
So walking through the water wastewater side of things, again, these are projects that have been previously presented and approved by town council. On the water side, we have 14 proposed projects, and these are all pulled directly from the town's water master plan project. So the types of projects that we're looking at here include water supply, additional pump station, pumping capacity, storage in the form of ground tanks, elevated storage tanks, as well as transmission mains in order to connect our facilities to where our growth is. That's kind of a really brief high-level rundown of what types of projects are going to be eligible on the water side. So you can see the table here. There's a lot of columns and numbers. I'll quickly kind of walk through it. So the 14 projects, the set of first three columns, it's called percent utilization. You can see 2025, 2035, and then there's a 10-year delta of what's the amount of that proposed project that serves customers in 2025, and then what would it project to do in 2035? So what's that difference, or going to be that percent eligible of the project? Now, you see some projects have a percentage greater than 0 in 2025, which is our current base year. So some of those projects, although they're not yet built, they would be providing water service to existing customers. So we have to discount what that percentage would be. So in terms of Project 2, if we were to build a new pump station in the town, initially some of that capacity would serve folks who are already here right now. That kind of becomes a secondary or redundant feed. Right now, we have the one pump station that provides service to the whole town. We put in that secondary pump station. We're not only going to help with that future projected growth, but we're going to provide that capacity to existing residents. And then, in 10 years' time, how much of those project capacities are we using? So that's the percent utilization columns. The next column, capital cost, is really the estimated cost for all these different improvements. If you go down to the bottom there, proposed project subtotal over $42 million. So the last three columns, again, are going to be what's going to be the capital cost times those percentages from the middle three columns. So what percentage of that capital cost serves current development? And then if I just move over to the right-hand column, beyond 2035, what excess capacity do we have in the future? So those are going to be dollars that aren't going to be eligible as well. So that second from the right column, the 10-year 2025 to 2035 column, is really the portion of total costs that we can pass on to new development in the 10-year window. Go down to the proposed project subtotal, $16,347,000 is the eligible cost. We've already baked in $45,000 for the water portion of doing an update in 5 years, which is eligible under state law. So the next row is looking at adding in finance and interest costs for these projects. Again, an eligible item to be included under state law. So what that brings the total impact fee for the water system to be $23,150,813. Any questions on how I kind of walk through that? Yes, sir.
Andrew, the financing costs shown there are a combination of estimated costs as well as the borrowing that we did this year?
It is. Yeah, we've got there's a little note at the bottom that we're looking at a 20-year bond, so the first 10 years of a 20-year bond at a 4% interest rate. So we're kind of just making we're casting a net and making an assumption of what we think we would be expending from a finance or interest side.
Because our most current bond offering went out 5.25%.
So being a little conservative, again, kind of protects us from potential challenges down the road. On the wastewater side of things, we have 8 projects. 7 of them are gravity main extensions to serve in areas where we're going to have future projected growth. And then the 8th project is to be a portion of the TRA. They're going to expand their Denton Creek wastewater plant. And so this would be kind of a portion of the town's contribution to that overall total. If we're going to be producing more wastewater flow, we want that to help kind of pay for the overall improvements to the system. So again, 8 projects, same methodology and process here. We've got a proposed project subtotal of $8.5 million. Again, another $45,000 for future update. $3.5 million for financing and interest. So that brings the total wastewater impact fee eligible cost to $12,103,140. So going back to that original equation, that's going to be the blue box, our eligible cost for water wastewater. But now I'm going to move to the denominator side where we talk about the growth in SFLUEs or service unit equivalents. So based on different meter sizes, you can see a 3/4 inch meter has a capacity of 30 gallons per minute. That's going to be the maximum amount that it can pass through per the American Water Works Association standards on meters. And so that becomes our base meter, our service unit equivalent of 1. As meters get larger, they can take more water, so they can impact the system more. So the ratio of the larger meters to the small, or the base meter size, you can see that column on the right. So by logic and math, if we have a larger meter, we're potentially subjected to a higher fee. The projected growth in service unit equivalents for water wastewater, that's going to be the right-hand column on either one of these tables. So we've projected out the number of meters by meter size that will come in this 10-year window based on the land use assumptions. We have a total of 2,160 is going to be our 10-year growth in service unit equivalents. We'll point out the one difference here. You'll see for the existing SUEs on the water, 2,680, which is slightly higher than the wastewater side of 2,528. We do have some existing connections that are provided water service but not sewer due to having their own private septic system. The assumption moving forward, everybody who ties on with the water meter will also tie into the sewer service. So, walking through the equation now, we have all of our inputs. You can see our total impact fee eligible costs on the water side, that $23,150,000 divided by 2,160 growth in service units. That gives a total number of $10,718 per service unit. Apply the 50% credit, we come down to $5,359 on the water side. Same process on the wastewater side of things. That yields a $2,801 charge for wastewater. So we look at the different meter sizes, those service unit equivalents, that table, the inputs there. So we have our water wastewater combined at $8,160 for a 3/4-inch meter. You can see how the fees go up based on the service unit equivalent for the larger meter sizes. So that whole span of $8,160 for the 3/4-inch meter. If you were to put in a 6-inch meter, the fees could be as high as $380,806.
Can you help me, or Wade, maybe it's a question for you. Our general house in Westlake, what's the meter size?
3/4 and 1 inch.
3/4 of one. Who has 6 inches?
It'd be large campuses might have 6 inches, but a lot of times they don't even have 6 inches. They'll be smaller. They're 4 and 5 inch. Hal would actually know exactly what that number is for some of our large campuses because he replaced them this last year.
Okay. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Eddie Haas. I prepared the roadway component of the impact fee program. Methodologically, following the water wastewater, the road CIPs rooted in your master thoroughfare plan. Projects that were identified as arterial class or collector class facilities are included in the program. 21 new projects that were identified for the program. These are new projects being road widenings, new roads altogether, but only the new lanes that are being added in, so new capacity added into the program. And the 21 projects provides capacity a little over 19,900 vehicle miles of capacity into the program. The forecasted growth in Westlake is a 10-year demand of about 48,600. Therefore, all the capacity that's provided will be consumed over that 10-year growth. That 48,000 number is rooted in the land use assumptions. We looked at population and employment, the net growth from 25 through 35, and then the service unit generation specifically for residential, office, commercial, and retail. And so that's what generates the 48,500. All that documentation's in the report, Appendix C or Table 3-8 in the report. The report also contains an enumeration of the projects by name, the limits, the number of lanes to be added into the program, the individual costing were undertaken through individual cost estimates, unit cost approach, based on 12-month averages, rolling averages, and or bid prices that we received from the town. So these numbers reflect construction, engineering, right-of-way, really any cost to put the appurtenance on the ground. The cost of debt service is included into the program. So those 21 projects total about $100 million of cost for consideration. Similar to the water wastewater, all of that cost is attributable to new growth, therefore it can be considered in the calculation. So it's the cost of necessitated capacity divided by those service units of growth of 48,000 results in a cost per vehicle mile of 2,068. With that 50% credit, that results in 1,034 per vehicle mile. And because traffic generates differently based on land use types, there's what's called a land use equivalency table that staff will use to measure development proposals within the town, those that they receive. By land use types, we have kind of a blow up there in the lower left of that screen depicting the residential categories. So the column in the far right is what's called the service unit generation, based on an independent variable, whether it's dwelling units for residential or generally on a per 1,000 square foot of non-residential type development. So they'll use that service unit generation times the cost per service unit, or that 1034 if the desire is to collect the maximum allowable, to calculate the fee. And so by way of steps, development proposal comes in, they'll assess how much quantity, the size of the development, 250 dwelling units, or 100,000 square foot of shopping center. The service unit generate from the equivalency table results in development vehicle miles times that cost per service unit, or the collection rate you all decide to implement as policy, results in the impact fee. Okay, so by way of walking through that, if you were, in the case of a single-family residence, wanting to collect that maximum allowable, it'd be one dwelling unit times 3.7 vehicle miles. That's the service unit generation for one dwelling unit. Results in 3.7 times a collection rate. If you all adopted the maximum allowable, 1,034. The impact fee would be $3,825. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I just need a bit more clarification on the service units, because you threw up a graph there that had 48,665 service units. How is that 48,665 calculated? This is about
So-
4 slides back.
From the land use assumptions, we looked at the net increase in population, year 2025 through 2035. There's a net increase in persons per dwelling unit. We're able to define the number of dwelling units. From the number of dwelling units times the service unit generation, we were able to project out a forecast of how many vehicle miles of growth would be anticipated from the LUA. And then similarly, for the for the non-residential component, Appendix C contains the net increase in what we generally categorize non-residential development in terms of industrial, commercial, or office. That net increase in square footage times square footage per employee, we're able to quantify number of square feet of development, and using that same equivalency table, able to forecast the number of development units so that we're able to quantify that full 40,665. Okay, so that becomes our total, if you
Yeah,
will.
it's still a little confusing for me, though, because if a single-family unit generates 3.7 service units, am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
So, I mean, what are the big items that are generating all those service units? Because 200 single-family units, which you had in that previous chart, would generate on the order of 700 service units. How are we getting to 48,000? What are we expecting?
It's the daytime commercial growth.
So we
So
have,
that's calculated. So it's
That's
not just
correct.
the single
Yeah, we
families.
have-
That's
Okay.
correct.
We have added population over the 10-year window, 1,396 persons, which is about 439 added dwelling units over the 10 years, times 3.7 results in 1,624 vehicle miles.
Yep.
On the non-residential side, in terms of retail, we forecasted about 2,509 employees for retail. That translates to a little over 2 million square feet of office or commercial development, times that service unit generation, that's 4,900. The service or office is the biggie. We've got about 13,900 employees, times that, that results in about 6.9, almost 7 million square feet of office development, times that service unit generation of 5.99. That's 41,000 vehicle miles right there.
Yeah, yes, that's what I was trying to get at. So it seems like it's 3% is based on the residential growth, and everything else is based on the retail and commercial. How does that growth factor into the water and wastewater?
Those are they're separate calculations altogether.
Understood, but I guess what I'm wondering is the water and wastewater usage it seemed to me based on residential growth.
On meters, right? They've
that's-
quantified
okay.
the number of dwelling units, therefore the resultant or the associated meters
That's right. It's the
that are
size
going to
of
be
meters.
necessitated by growth.
In the size of meters, how we capture that, because if you look at the Charles Schwab's, they've got 3 to 4 4-inch meters, so they're going to be paying significantly more because of the water usage that's on that campus, as opposed to a single-family dwelling that's only a 3/4-inch line.
Yeah, I guess I get that. I guess where I'm just a little confused why the amount of growth in road impact or the amount of impact fees associated with road impact, right, which we're calculating to be upwards of $100 million of cost, so the fees are significant compared to the water and wastewater. I would presume it would be commensurate. I would expect the water and wastewater to be pretty high as well, but.
Yeah, so the road component is actually a little bit higher. You'll see those in the benchmarking charts that we have. And remember that traffic generates differently by land use type, right? Residential generates a lot fewer trips than an office versus retail versus daycare versus light. So there's a variety of factors. And so the equivalency table that we've prepared is predicated on known data of trip generation by trip type. This is from ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, 11th edition. So we have trip rate data, vehicles, PM, peak hour, and we have trip length data, trip length associated with the kind of trip that it is, home-based work, home non-work, non-home-based trips. So we're able to, that's what that service unit generation is tailored specifically to Westlake. So if you're going to the point of, well, what if a developer what if they feel that they generate traffic differently from what's presented in ITE? Well, the city engineer can consider information that that an applicant might have for their type of land use. Okay, so we have known data that's published per ITE, and so that is the root of the data from a trip generation perspective. The trip length information is rooted in data from the NCTCOG travel demand model, the regional model on typical trip lengths by trip type. Okay?
So again, this is a maximum,
That's correct.
correct? So
Yeah, so in this
it's subject to
scenario,
negotiation at some point.
I'm sorry?
It's subject to some negotiation during
Well,
development.
that's
but
correct.
this is the maximum that we.
Right. If you all decide that it's appropriate to collect the maximum allowable, that 50%, that's within your purview. The town, your residents are already going to pick up the other half, right? If you decide that maybe 40% of max or 10% of max, whatever, is more appropriate, well, someone's going to be picking up the delta on that.
We've never had an impact fee
Yeah.
before. So the residents and everyone who's been here has been picking up the growth.
100% of it.
And
That's
this is
correct.
a way to make residents happier, but to put growth where growth is. What were the words you used, Andrew? I mean,
It's growth paying for growth.
Growth paying for
And he was correct in the definition. The impact fee program is predicated on new development paying a portion of that. That's up to that ceiling. That's correct, because new development's only going to pay their fair share. The more capacity they consume, the higher the fee. And it's only fair that they're paying no more or no less. And so that's what that ceiling is. Okay? And if you all decide by policy that you feel it's appropriate to collect something less, that's within your purview. We're just identifying what that ceiling is.
It's negotiation of it is within our.
That's correct. Even if you were to adopt the max, on the other side, as part of development agreements, there could be other things going on as part of that final deal. Okay? Perfect. So I was in the middle of this calculation, the single-family residential, the collection, the service unit generation, the impact fee, or the cost per service unit is the impact fee. You add them all up, generally it's around $11,900, somewhere around $12,000 would be the cost for a single-family residence when you combine the three components together. Okay? So what we did with the advisory, we're going to show this in terms of benchmarking here, but we wanted to provide just kind of a layout of what different types of development activity would be generating based on different sizes. We have a mixed-use development, we had a quality restaurant, we had a retail shopping center, and we had a corporate headquarters. And you can see the different sizes, 25-unit mixed-use development, 5,000 square feet of quality restaurant, 25,000 square foot shopping center, 100,000 square foot of corporate headquarters. And with their unit equivalent and the maximum, you can see what the different impact fees would result in. So you start thinking, holy smoke, $567,000 for 100,000 square foot of corporate. Well, if you think about the impact that they're putting on the network, that is the actual impact. It's a cost to that. Okay? And that is only a roadway, that's correct. And so the logical question might be, well, I'm a developer and I put down a road, I should get some kind of credit, and that's the way the program works. Developer puts down a roadway, the cost of that road, you credit that against the impact fee, and that's how you square away from there. Okay, so the benchmarking charts, we looked, this was to kind of help the advisory committee and now subsequently you all. What are other communities that have impact fee programs and based on their current collection rates, what are the actual fees per ordinances? So we looked at several peer cities, and you see them listed along the bottom: Prosper, Colleyville, Flower Mounds, Northlake, Keller, Fort Worth, Justin, Hazlitt, Southlake, and Roanoke. Trophy Club doesn't have impact fee program, so we didn't list them. So, but if you were to look at what is the cost of a single-family residence per their ordinance, Prosper, the impact fee is $29,700, and so on. Here, Westlake, if you were to collect that maximum, that would be $16,200. So, what we have also is the breakdown of the road in orange, the wastewater in green, and the water in blue. We're also showing that pass-through component, the Fort Worth. That's the part that's built into Andrew's calculation.
So yeah, that kind of hatched blue, light blue there is the Fort Worth pass-through on the water side, because y'all receive water from Fort Worth. You have to pay the water impact fee. That's a fee that you've already been charging. You've been charging this because they share the same rate of that water impact fee with all 30 plus of their wholesale customers. They pass it through. Same rate across the board. So all the ones you see, that the North Lakes, Kellers, Hazlitt, South Lake, Roanoke, they all pay the same fee to Fort Worth. Elwood.
Just make sure all of these towns and cities you're showing, they have impact fees, right? These are their
What are listed in this chart, that is
They have
correct.
them. We would-
And so this is their ordinance. And also, it's important to note, within each community, you see a year underneath each one. And so by law, if you were to adopt this program, the program has to be reviewed and updated at least every 5 years, okay? So the reason we're showing the dates here, Colleyville is 2022, Flower Mound 2021, so on. They're anticipating an update, and you can anticipate that with construction costs continuing to grow up, their numbers might go up commensurately.
No doubt.
Okay, so this was a single-family residential with a 3/4 inch meter. I guess those are the meters you've had in the past. Most new residential will be on a 1-inch meter here in the town, and so I wanted to show out what that would be, and that would be about $24,500. And if you're looking, well, how does Westlake compare to some of these other communities? Kind of land more or less in the middle, if you will. Okay. A couple of those scenarios that I identified for the road component, the 25-unit mixed-use development, that would be residential on top with some level of commercial on the lower level. Okay, so that impact fee for that type development in Flower Mound would be about $270,000. Here in Westlake, if you adopted the maximum allowable, that would be $102,000. South Lake, I don't think that's correct, 2018. I think their last program was 2023. When they last updated it. But they're due up for an update here soon.
Sorry, we checked their ordinance, and it is 2018. I think they're in the process.
At least it could be shorter.
That's got to be at least
But by law, you have to do it at least, yeah. So
That's why you would think. South Lake.
yeah, so it seems a little long. So maybe they adopted a no change, maybe somewhere in there, kept the rates the same maybe, but that's per their last ordinance. 5,000 square foot quality restaurant. This is kind of a sit down, kind of an hour long type, not a high turnover like a Chili's or anything like that, but more of a quality scenario. So that impact fee would be $65,000 here in the town, and you can see some of your peer cities here how high that fee is in other communities. 25,000 square foot of shopping center. The impact fee here in the town, if adopted at the maximum allowable, would be $101,000. Then the other communities, obviously, you can see ranging from a high of $500,000 to a low of $37,000. So Roanoke doesn't have roads, so in fact, it looks like they only have water, may not even have. Nor Hazlitt, yeah.
In the case
tell that
of
by
something
driving.
like Colleyville, or Keller, probably better because it's adjacent to us, why would their road impact fees be because of the geography?
So the 75%, so those percentages indicate that they must have done a credit analysis and they're collecting at a higher rate. So, policy decision.
You're also going to, if I may, you're also going to see North Lake, their population is scheduled to more than double. They're going to be well over 45,000 people within the next 5 to 10 years. So a great deal of this has to do with your growth, right? So they have a huge amount of growth potential, and their square miles are a lot larger than the square miles of the city limits for us. Keller is huge as well. So there's more room for all that growth, which in turn means a higher impact fee because there's going to be more growth need out there.
The final scenario that we had was that 100,000 square foot of corporate campus, and we had assumed a 4-inch meter to serve that. So obviously, if you collected the max in the three different components, that impact fee would be $836,000, and you can see where you are relative to some of your peer cities. And we put an asterisk by North Lake. They don't have an office category; they have commercial. So when I called and asked them, "Hey, pretend I'm a office corporate campus coming to town, what service unit generation?" They So it'd probably be under the commercial category. So we put an asterisk behind it because my presumption would be I think I might challenge that. Anyway, that under the current ordinance, that would be in the $2.3 million for that type scenario. So this might help you all in your decision-making process if you're contemplating what level to charge. The advisory committee, as Andrew mentioned earlier, they recommended collecting the maximum allowable for all three components. So with that, that is the conclusion of my presentation. Really, the action before you, should you decide to adopt impact fees, would be to accept the LUA. You've already accepted the LUA in the CIPs, but it's the cost per service unit, the impact fee calculation, that cost per service unit. And then ultimately, it's for the ordinance, it's the implementation of the adoption of the ordinance, the program, and then your ordinance collection rates. With that, I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Just have a comment. I think the work that you did was excellent. Not only was it comprehensive, but you gave us a lot of information to be able to understand it. You took comprehensive, difficult to understand information and put it into layman's terms, which
there's a little math involved. That's the technical side. But when we get down to the consideration, that's within your policy consideration. That's all. That's with pure policy. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Excellent analysis.
So, here to answer any questions you might have.
We'll need to open and close the public hearing.
Okay. I'm going to open up a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? I will close the public hearing. We'll now go to agenda item C-1, discuss, consider, and act to approve and adopt ordinance number 1028, amending the Town of Westlake Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 82, titled Subdivisions, to establish Article 15, entitled Impact Fees, establishing water, wastewater, and roadway capital impact fees, establishing a maximum allowable impact fee per service unit, establishing procedures for the assessment, computation, collection, deposit, refund, expenditure, and general administrative of said impact fees, establishing an appeal procedure, establishing an effective date of August 25th, 2025, providing for penalties, providing for severability clause, and finding and determine that the meeting at which this ordinance is adopted is open to public as required by law. Can I get a motion to approve ordinance number 1028?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mayor, I just want to thank the council for the special meeting.
No doubt.
Getting this scheduled and done prior to the September 1st deadline, and also to Freeze and Nichols, who sped up their process by about 4 months in order to make this happen as well. And you can imagine we're not the only municipality they're doing this for. I think there's probably 6 or 8 more that they're having to do this over the next week or so to get all this done prior to September 1 deadline.
Yeah, no doubt.
We want to thank them and thank the council for this consideration.
Yeah,
Thank you, Wade, and your team for putting this together.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys, thank you, Wade, your team, thank you again. And to council, in all honesty, over the last year plus, we've really we're evolving our town to where it needs to be. We've been behind. We've said that. We have a lot of things we need to do, but this is a huge step for us going forward, another piece of the puzzle for us to put together to make us the town that we all want. So I appreciate all of council. With that said, it's not a record, but it's a pretty good meeting. I'll adjourn the meeting at 4:40, darn. Thank you all.